Hello, and welcome to Talk Relationship to Me, the show that explores some of the most important relationship topics. I'm Dr. Elana Hoffman. As a clinical psychologist, I focus on all things relationships. From dating to sex to long-term relationships to divorce, I cover it all. I use my professional lens as a psychologist as well as lived experience to cover these topics. Do you need to talk relationships? You're in the right place. On today's episode, I am joined by special guest, friend and colleague, Andrew Ninnemann, and we are here to discuss this season of Summer House. So I did one episode about the first episode of this season, season 10, but we have been waiting to come on and talk more about this season and all reality TV in general, because Andrew and I are reality TV aficionados. We are good friends from graduate school, and now Andrew is a relationship coach in my practice, and we will do another episode talking about relationship coaching and what that is, and all of that good stuff. But today we were talking reality TV, and I'm so excited, Andrew, that you are here. This long-awaited episode of Summer
Truly.
House.
Thank you for having me. Excited
Thank
and
you
glad
so
to
much
be
for
here.
joining. We will take
hmm
our text discussion with your wife, Laura, that we have about the show on to, into our listeners' ears. So yes.
Perfect. I'm ready.
Great. So yeah, we've been viewers of the show for a long time. I always say to my clients and friends, there's a lot to learn about relationships from reality TV. And I think this show in particular is a really great example of that, especially if you have followed, the cast members from the beginning, and there are some that are still here from the beginning. There are some new ones this season. But it really is lots of lessons here about romantic relationships, friendships, all kinds of things. So yes, let's dive in.
Please. I'm
Who should
ready.
we start with?
Obviously, Kyle and Amanda.
Kyle and Amanda. Yeah. So Kyle and Amanda, I did mention in the other episode I put out, they are kind of the main couple. They are our married couple in the house. They met a long time ago. We've seen them over the years, in the house every summer. And they announced their divorce before this season came out, right?
hmm
So as we're watching this season of them married in the house, we know the outcome in real life is that they are divorcing. When I heard this, or maybe even Laura, when I heard this, we were the first to discuss it via text. I don't remember if I heard it or
On the
Laura sent
planet,
it to
I'm pretty
someone.
sure.
On the
Yeah.
yes, yes,
Yeah. We're just on
yes,
top of it.
yes, yes, yes. This flashbulb memory situation where you remember really significant events. I remember very clearly where I was walking into a yoga class when
yeah.
when we heard the news.
Yeah. It's like me and
Um,
Princess Diana's passing.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. 9/11, same deal. Um, so, so yeah, it was, I was very excited to hear about this divorce, and I know how that sounds, but as people who know my approach and know my practice, I see it as a very positive thing when people decide that the relationship they're in is no longer working for them. And in this example, we see them over time, and of course the caveat of reality TV and some influence of production and editing and all that, but you really do see how toxic their relationship is and has been for a long time. And they continue to, they really bring out the worst in each other. They continue to, of course we will talk specifics about this, but I personally was very happy when they announced that they're going their separate ways, and I think it's a great decision for both of them. And knowing that as we're watching the season is just even more reinforced.
Yeah. I have to agree 100%. I mean, previous season, it wasn't great. It hasn't been great for a little while now. But if you really want to see it in the clear light of day this season, and just sort of the, I don't, overused these days, but toxic energy
Oh yeah.
that's really coming out, and sort of disdain they seem to have for each other, just across the episodes that have been released thus far, even
Yeah.
particularly the first two or three,
Yeah.
um, is so clear. And it in in that light, Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they really don't like each other, and
Yeah.
it's really clear. I talk about the four horsemen of the relationship apocalypse and contempt being such a huge one that is a big predictor of divorce. And the way
Yeah.
they talk to each other, the way they roll their eyes at each other, the way they just directly insult each other, the way they talk shit about each other to their friends on camera, to the camera, I mean, they're past the point of even trying to sort of be nice, like, they are just
It's bad.
saying, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so it's hard to in some ways it's hard to watch. I mean, I actually think it's hard to watch. I mean, knowing that they are splitting up makes it easier, but it's still at least the first few episodes were really hard to watch, and I think that, in the last few episodes, there've been more developments with the other cast members that, I'm
Mhm.
glad that they have focused on because in the first few episodes, I just thought to myself, "I really hope this season is not just watching Kyle and Amanda's marriage fall apart because this is a great show, and there's lots of other cast members that bring a lot to the table, and so while that is an interesting and important storyline, I am glad it's the whole season is not turning out to be watch Kyle and Amanda's relationship fall apart.
I
Although we're
okay,
still making changes.
I agree. I agree, though I feel like, so many people downplay reality television and whether it really captures what's happening for people and, that things are set up in a variety of ways. And I think it makes clear watching those scenes with them, first 2 or 3 episodes in particular, that this is not scripted television.
Yeah,
You are watching the devolution of a marriage,
for sure.
and it's both hard to watch, I totally agree, but also if you wanna see that reality in stark relief, this
Yeah,
is this is it. This is reality for a
yeah,
lot of people,
yeah,
couples out there, and,
yeah.
I think it's a sobering reminder of, what a relationship can turn into if people, don't protect themselves and protect the marriage.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And are just, you know, in some ways fundamentally incompatible and have different visions of the future and want
Yeah.
different things and have different priorities. So a lot of things that are going on in their relationship is, also things that have been there from the beginning. I mean, Amanda has a big issue with Kyle's drinking and him out all night and this new DJ career that he has, and this seems to be a really big piece of him, and she has a major issue with it. I mean, that's one thing. That's one thing that we see playing out where she has a lot of
Yeah.
anger and resentment about it.
Yeah, I feel like the drinking piece itself, I mean, when you see them on what's the apology dune? Is that what
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
the apology
Yeah.
dune
The apology
scene,
dune.
which, the sort of, retrospective on that dune is pretty
So
amazing
good.
in that episode.
Yeah, amazing.
But just the entirely failed attempt, maybe by both of them, to reach consensus on the apology dune is,
Yeah.
pretty incredible. But in particular, I'm thinking of the moment where, they keep missing each other, right? So Amanda, it's the drinking and the underlying career pathing, if you will, of his DJing and otherwise. And for him, it's the lack of connection, intimacy, just knowing about a partner and having interest. And neither really seems to be able to hear each other. But I guess in this moment for Kyle, when the drinking's called out, his response to it has nothing to do with drinking.
Yeah,
It's
totally.
almost as if it's, I don't know. It just
Yeah, I mean, he says really directly, he really calls out, I mean, he dismisses her concern about it, which he all which he but he does say bigger picture, I'm concerned about our lack of intimacy, our lack of connection. We
right.
basically spend no time together, are not interested in each other. Like, what about all that, right? And, I
Yeah.
think in that moment, she's kind of like, I know she seemed a little sort of caught off guard by that. I mean, it's certainly a big statement, and they patch
Incredibly.
things up. Yeah, I mean, they patch things up in that moment, and they're always like, "Oh, well, let's just enjoy the summer." That's sort of the resolution of their, like, talks and arguments. And, of course, these really deeper issues don't
Yeah.
go away once fall comes. And and she
No.
says at various points, I think, like, this is the same, it's the same thing every summer, it's the same thing every summer. And it is, I mean, as viewers, it's the same thing every summer, right? She
Yeah.
is asking for something from him that he is not interested or capable of really giving, and she feels really hurt and resentful of that.
Extremely, it seems, right? And I feel like, I don't know, as the last couple episodes, clearly haven't focused on them as much. Um, but these interesting attempts, sort of by both of them, I suppose. In this moment, I'm thinking of Kyle, where there are the scenes about and the retrospective on his poor gift giving
Oh, yeah.
in the past, right? And his, right now I got to get this right. And it's thoughtful. I'll give it that. And I think he's right. Like, you did need to get that right if there was any chance of the relationship going forward. But at the same time, I also think it's a reminder that when things are in a really dark place in many relationships, people focus on these sort of oversimplified, it's not a task really, but a gift, an item, as if that could solve what is really a deeply ingrained issue that they need to work through at a much deeper level.
Yeah. Yeah, I have so many thoughts on the watch. So basically it's like, it's Amanda's birthday, which they show every year. And then so they're all sitting at this fancy dinner. I love how she's like wanted everyone to dress up and a fancy dinner. And she was like, next weekend is Kyle's birthday and he's doing a party, but this is what I want for mine. I want this like fancy dinner with like
Yeah.
great food. Love that. And so she makes everyone dress up. And they all do happily. And then at dinner, this is also like feeds into other things that happen, but basically, Kyle sort of like presents this gift, and it's this watch that I guess she had talked about wanting.
Right.
And everyone like breaks out in cheers and applause, like, way to go, buddy. Like, you did a great job. And
You
like,
did it.
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
did
And
it.
right. And Kyle is like so relieved and Amanda's so happy. But like, she goes to her mom. She goes to FaceTime her mom after. And do you happen to remember the first thing she says about the gift when her mom picks up the phone?
Oh, wow. I just watched it
Okay,
this
this is not a
morning
pop
too.
quiz. This is not a
It
pop.
feels like one, okay?
Okay.
Tell me, tell me.
The first thing she said, at least in what we were led to, she just says, he listened.
Uh,
Right. And like that is the thing about gift giving, right? And I say this to my clients all the time. And a lot of people struggle with gift giving, right? But it's not about the gift. Like the thing
yeah,
that mattered to her was he listened, he saw, like, I mentioned that I wanted this and he heard it. And they talk about this a lot. They really do talk about like they don't pay attention to each other and they don't listen and they don't connect. And this was like, I mean, obviously this is not a solution to save a marriage, one watch, one gift, right? But
sure.
but in a
Nonetheless,
relationship, in a relationship where someone feels so unheard and not paid attention to, and she's asking all these things from him that he's not doing, she feels like he's not listening to her at all. Like she's asking him to come
yeah,
home early, he's not doing it. She's asking him to do, to stop drinking, he's not doing that. And like she's like, finally he listened to something that I said. And so
right.
that meant a lot to her. But did you catch that comment at the winery where she was like, well, if I leave him, I at least get a watch? Did you hear?
No?
Oh,
What?
yeah. So later in the episode, they're at a winery and they're talking about the watch and they're again like patting him on the back. And she says to the camera, she says, or maybe she says to her friends, she says, this actually isn't about me. Like, this is about Kyle being able to be proud of a gift. And then we see her say to the table, well, if I leave him, at least I get a watch. So I just wonder, I mean, I know from clinical experience, and I'm sure, it's people think about leaving their relationship for a long time before they actually leave it.
Sure, yeah.
And so at this point, when they're filming in July, and then I think they like, whenever they actually separated, which I think is September, like I think it's shortly after, I just wonder how certain she was at that time. I mean, this is a joke, but obviously it's not a joke, right? I
Oh,
mean,
I
she's
mean
she's
I
been really
mean,
seriously thinking about it.
it's a dark joke, but
Yeah,
it's a joke
right.
in the
Yeah.
context of the
Yeah.
We can call
Yeah.
them episodes, but let's assume last few weeks they've had together or
Yeah.
weekends.
Yeah. Yeah.
There. Yeah, I think I was really focused on Ben and Bailey, in that
Yes.
scene at the
Yes.
winery, so I may have missed part
Yes.
of
Yes.
that,
Yeah.
which is its own
It was
topic, I
it was,
suppose.
yes. I mean, it was, an offhand comment, but obviously rather and then right, and they do the retrospective of, like, right, of Kyle, like, messing up the gift every time. But again, this is,
Yes.
it's just about when people mess up gifts, it's because a partner does not feel listened to and heard. And, it is an important love language because it is an indicator of, does my partner know me? Do they know what I would like? Have they heard
Yeah.
what I want? Like, are they paying attention? This is why gift giving is really important. It's not actually about, like, the cost of the thing, but it's about the being in tune and paying attention. So, that's Amanda just wants a partner who's in tune with her, and that's why she was so momentarily relieved by that. And I think you're right that if he hadn't gotten it, I mean, again, right, obviously they're ending up separated, but if he hadn't sort of nailed it, you know, it just would have been another Kyle and
Oh,
Amanda fight. I mean, it
insult to injury at that point,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm surprised it didn't save the marriage personally, I watch his always seem to, but,
Yeah.
it is what it is. I'm glad he succeeded at that one,
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
minimum.
Good job, Kyle.
Yeah, we're proud of you, bud. Proud of you, and, as a basement DJ myself, I just wanna say,
Yeah.
all the power to you, and also, yeah, from my understanding of most touring DJs' lives, like, substance use is, a huge issue and, risk, so certainly one to guard against as that career path then continues.
Well, I mean, he's doing his thing, and he's getting a lot of attention and dopamine and all these things from doing it. And, like, good for him. Right now, hopefully he'll be able to do it without the, feeling guilty about Amanda being mad at him, or, like, planning around, it's like now, you live your life. You're free to DJ and travel and do whatever you do, right? But
Yes.
it was clearly not compatible with what she wanted. And at one point she was talking about house in the suburbs and kids and all these things. And
So Kyle.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think I think Kyle has, well, I don't know if it's recognized or treated because obviously I don't know, but, the potential question of how he might have ADHD, and how,
Sure.
he is somebody that, I mean, a business owner and has his hands in a lot of different things, and he's very creative and passionate. We do see that. And that is, of course, a characteristic, can be, of ADHD. And so, but it also, it's a predictor of substance use later because of all the dopamine. And, if you don't really understand how to kind of channel it, you can
Yeah,
be susceptible to this kind of thing. But there are ways to DJ in a way that is conducive to a lifestyle that you want, right? Or do
true.
whatever it is, right?
Very true. Yeah, I was thinking about in that moment kind of how Amanda talked about, I think it was episode 2 or 3, where she's talking to Sierra on the bed and, vocalizing how, I don't remember the verbatim, but something along the lines of she doesn't see how she'll find someone else or no one else would want me or something so
Yeah,
sad, and
yeah,
so inaccurate,
yeah,
and just also portrays that kind of thinking style that can pervade a relationship where one or both partners has gotten into a place where they're ready to be done with it, but they can't really imagine. It's sort of the what's the investment fallacy?
sunk cost. Yeah,
Yeah, sunk cost fallacy. It's in some ways it feels like where they just feel like they've put in so much time, and
yeah,
push comes to shove. Clearly, out of this summer, they came to the conclusions that I think will help them both reach a happiness they're looking for.
yeah,
But
for sure.
just where she is in her self image in that moment,
I
so sad.
know.
Yeah,
I know. And that, and one of the things that has stuck out to me throughout the years is the friendship component of this all, and how in that moment Sierra in particular, and has been such a good friend to her. It's a really hard position to be in, where it seems like, where your friend is in a relationship that you see is not healthy, and, walking this balance of being a supportive friend and not wanting to, you know, talk shit or, wanting to be supportive, but also seeing how unhappy your friend is and really
Yeah.
walking that line of support and confidence. And she says pretty directly, like, you're amazing. Like, have all these XYZ, traits that like are so great and you don't see it. And it
Yeah.
breaks my heart that you don't see it. And it hurts me to see you being treated this way. I mean, she says that. And I think that a lot of people watching, can relate to that in terms of seeing their friends in relationships that maybe they don't see their friends at their best, and they just really want what is really best for them, and they want their friends to have a partner that is who sees what they see in their friends.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, to your point, she very much, at least in my opinion, threads the needle really well
Yeah.
on communicating that support without, say, ostracizing herself from the entire relationship.
Yeah.
Her friendship with Kyle is clearly complicated, as portrayed, in the summer and what we see.
Yeah.
And yet she is friends with both of them. So it's this tough line. She's obviously closer, with Amanda, but
Yeah.
nonetheless, a tough line to walk in that moment. And I think she did a great job of it.
Yeah.
Um, but it
Yeah.
is a very real thing. Are you open to pivoting to
Yeah.
the love triangle that we
Yeah.
see unfolding
We
with
can pivot.
Sierra West and
Yes.
Smiley Jesse Solomon?
Jesse Solomon. Yes, totally. Yes. I feel like there was something else I wanted to say, but maybe
Oh, sorry.
I'm
Yeah.
sure it'll no, I'm sure it will come back. I'm sure I'll come back to it.
I
Anyway,
just
yes.
I just want to make sure we cover all the
Yeah,
relational
yeah, yeah. I
topics,
know, I know, I know, I know, I know. So,
I
yes.
mean,
So,
I was just going to say, I imagine we will get a chance to return to, our
yes.
favorite Kyle and Amanda.
Yes, yes, yes. Yes, so there is a love triangle that we saw sort of develop, right? So Sierra and
Yeah.
West last summer or no, 2 summers ago, had
Hmm.
had a thing, right? We saw them meet and connect. They had a lot of personality. I'm sorry, they had a lot of chemistry, personality-wise. Like,
They have
Wes was
personality
clearly
too, just to be clear.
well, I was gonna switch the word personality chemistry-wise. They had a
Yes,
lot of
yes, yes,
chemistry
yes.
personality-wise. They, Wes was clearly really attracted to Sierra. And so, they had a fling, I guess, if you will, although, Sierra was really, saw it as a serious thing. And she is, as she makes clear, and I'll come back to this in a second, a very, serious minded. Yes. Yes,
Fling
Andrew.
might be an understatement
I think, yeah,
of
you're right.
the
You're right.
dynamic,
You're
even
right.
if
You're right.
Sierra was maybe a little more head over heels.
Yeah, 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 yeah. They had well, right. So I mean, at the reunion after the summer, we hear more
Oh,
about.
so awkward, my God.
Yeah, well, and we hear more about, she went home to his family for the holidays and all that stuff, and she clearly saw this as a serious thing, and it seemed like he was not quite in that place for a serious relationship, and she was really hurt
Hmm. Hmm.
by, by ultimately the relationship ending and feeling like he wasn't giving her what she wanted from that, and that he led her on,
Yeah.
and that was hurtful. And then last summer, we see this pressure on her in the house to like be friends and like, oh, you guys are so great, like he has learned a lot, and like he's sorry for how he treated you, so like, you should just sort of be friends. And she was like, no, and she really kept this wall up, and they
Yep.
were pretty distant in the house. And then this summer, we see that wall come down a little bit, and we see more flirtation between the two of them. And we see a little bit of what we saw initially when they met, when he first came in the house. We see that connection,
Yeah.
and they flirt more, and we see that relationship. So now there's this sort of question, and then simultaneously Sierra and Jesse have always had this close connected friendship that has also been flirtatious. And
Very,
so
very, very.
yeah. Yeah. And so I don't know, what do you think about their.
Well, I think I'm having some recency bias with the recent episodes where, no surprise, just a call out to one of your favorite cast members. Lindsay stirring the pot
Working.
on this one, making sure it all got. I mean, it was a pot stir. There's no
Well,
denying that.
no, yes, I'm not denying that, but I love that moment at the party because basically what happened was Jesse asked Wes, like, hey, can I make out with Sierra? Sierra did not know this. And so this was this whole thing that Sierra was unaware of. And Lindsay, who's like sort of an every other weekend situation here, on the show. Love Lindsay. By the way, we have to come back to the T-Mobile commercial, which is do you see that when you watch it? I love it. I love it.
Yes.
So I love
First
her.
time ever. Yeah, I was like, oh my God, Laura,
I
look
just
at
love
this.
her so much. She's so leaning into her brand. I love it. I love it. And so she's like an every other weekender for given her like kid schedule, right? I personally can relate to that. So she's up there and she's like, so wait, Sierra doesn't know about this? She's like, is it my job to tell her? I think it is my job to tell her.
Right. Yes.
And so, but I think she was right. I think it was her job to tell her.
Well, okay. Maybe give a as clear as you can, quick version of just the stepwise, and then we can get into some opinions about people's reactions, responses.
Okay, so basically she takes it upon herself to tell Sierra that this conversation has been happening, right,
Mhm.
between West and Jesse
Yeah.
about like can Jesse make out with Sierra, right?
Mhm.
And then Sierra gets pretty upset about this,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to remember the exact sequence of events. So Sierra gets upset about this, and she and Jesse
She leaves the party. She's upset. She
she
ends up
leaves the party.
crying with
Right.
trying to remember which cast member she's with. Maybe it's Mia.
Maybe
She's with
Mia.
her friend
Yeah.
Mia,
Yep.
working her through it. She
Yep.
decides first to talk to Jesse about this,
Well, it's awkward for a little while, right? This is like from one episode to another, right? So this party happens, and then we don't see until the next episode, and we
Yeah.
see Jesse drives up with the guys, and he says, "Yeah, I've been reaching out to Sierra, but she hasn't. Like, I texted her, and she hasn't responded. Normally, she would. So there's this distance,
Yep.
between them already because Sierra is aware of this, and they haven't discussed it yet. So then in the next episode, we see them have a conversation about it where he goes
Let's
to
maybe let's. So they have a conversation. They
Yep,
close out the conversation. Then she eventually talks to West
yep,
a bit about it. And clearly, from at least, I assume you watch these also, but the previews of upcoming episodes, it appears things will get deeper and more complicated there between flirtation and those conversations,
yeah,
particularly related to West. It
West,
it
right,
would it would appear. So if that's the high level,
yep,
we rewind to okay, Jesse talks to West,
yep.
and then Lindsay informs her, and she talks to Jesse, and they have their back and forth. What are your thoughts on that dialogue, communicating kind of what occurred? Because I definitely both saw a place and maybe it's a stereotypical guy kind of like dynamic of thinking. And
Yeah.
so that's why I might see it from that angle. But I also could see both of their perspectives on kind of how it went down and why they each feel the way they do. So I'm just curious kind of what your read is and what you feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think, this comes from a place of like clearly Jesse is crushing and is
Yeah.
thinking like we have this great friendship. We're really close. Like we do flirt, we cuddle. Like I mean, we see them like in bed constantly together, cuddling. Like they obviously have a connection. And so he is like thinking like, "Hey, could this be more than a friendship?" Right? And so I
And
think like
that flirtation appears to maybe up itself this season, and it was flirty last season.
yeah. Yes, yes, yes. So I think he's thinking like, "Hey, could this be more?"
Yeah.
And which is like really an understandable feeling and thought. And when you have people in that dynamic, in that situation, like that are around each other all the time, that are friends, that are sharing intimate parts of their lives, that are talking about other relationships, and they've both seen each other, with other partners and like talking about, I mean, you get really close and connected in these types of environments. I think about like growing up at summer camp where it's like a day
Sure.
in the life of
Yeah,
summer
yeah,
camp
yeah.
is like a months in like real life time.
Totally,
So it's
totally.
like things like develop really quickly and intensely. And I think with Jesse and Sierra, they do have, this
Yeah.
connection. And so he's like, hey, maybe like this could be more. I think what went wrong is just like the approach of it, right? I mean, instead, and this is what Sierra says, right? Instead of coming to her sort of directly and having a conversation about what he's feeling, and like kind of putting it out there, he in her mind makes it about the physical, right? Like, hey, can I make out with her is what he says to
Okay,
Wes.
okay. Yeah, yeah. So she, just to confirm, she gets that information from Lindsay doing a verbatim sharing of that information? Yeah?
I mean, Lindsay wasn't there when
Right. I
Jesse
guess
asked Wes,
Lindsay,
so
like, it's an accurate portrayal though, right? That's what I
I
was
think
not
so.
remembering for sure. Okay.
Yes, because
Okay. Okay.
that's what Sierra really well, it's one of the things Sierra really takes
For
issue with.
sure. For sure. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think on that side, I have no defense of Jesse on some of those.
Well, I think she's really hurt because I think she really considers him a close friend, and I think she thinks of him as someone that really understands her and knows what she's looking for. And
Yeah.
he saw this play out with West, where she was wanting something more serious, and West, hurt her, but I mean, it just didn't work out. And so Sierra got really hurt and guarded from that. And she talks about pretty openly and consistently about how she wants a boyfriend, she wants a relationship, she is not a casual sex girly. Like, I mean, she even with West, like that was a big topic of conversation. Like she really took things slow with him from that,
Sure. Yeah.
the physical piece. And so hearing like, hey, can I make out with with you is like she has two issues with it. One is that it was like behind her back and she wasn't involved in the conversation and sort of a permission asking kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
deal.
Yeah.
But then it was also like I think she was hurt by Jesse of like, you know what I'm about. Why would you say that when you know that I'm someone that is looking for something serious?
Totally.
And if you were considering taking this relationship to another level, it would be serious. It would not be this like, hey, can we make out? She even says like, you didn't say, can I take you on a date? You said like, can we make
Yeah.
out?
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, right? Because I, to the second part of it, I think the part that is related to the makeout and you know Jesse knowing her well enough to know the pain she went through with the West situation, what she's looking for in a partnership with a guy, all of those things, like pretty inexcusable in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah.
On the way it went down communicationally, I can totally see a scenario, and I wonder if we we make it straight couples and talk similar dynamics for you if you're imagining. I could totally see a scenario where if I'm close friends with both these people and I know my boy or whatever language somebody wants to use who's a close friend of mine had a pretty close thing, it would feel like a betrayal to them to not have spoken to them first.
Yeah.
So it almost feels like a no-win where
And
it's
he
like,
says that. He's, I mean, he says that when he's talking to Sierra, like, Wes is my boy.
well,
Like,
that's what I mean.
yeah.
It seems defensible. Like he
Mhm.
articulates
Mhm.
that part of it, and I almost think there's a logic to it.
Yeah.
Uh, Whereas to have done it a different way feels like a betrayal to the guy anyway, and you're definitely going to lose that friendship if you do it that way. And she's like, yeah, I'm open to dating, making out, whatever the thing is, regardless of the specifics of how he messed up there. Like that that feel like in a normal scenario where Lindsay isn't he's just buzzing around and getting herself involved. I imagine these two people talking over there, and there meaning a different day, a different place. They don't all have some summer house together, and
Yeah.
your friend's like, oh yeah, it's no worries. Like I don't have strong feelings. Clearly that's not what Wes said, but
Yeah.
clearly that
Yeah.
conversation occurs,
Yeah.
and they decide, okay, I'm gonna now talk to this woman,
Yeah.
Sierra, about it, and it's all good, and it was all above board. And then there's a different scenario where he talks to Wes, and Wes says, "No, I'm not cool." And maybe he's like, "Okay, I'll talk to you more about that later." But and then he never has the conversation, and it's all cool.
Yeah.
Like there's an argument for that in my mind
Yeah,
that
I think
seems
there's an argument for
reasonable.
that. Yeah. I think that Sierra would have maybe preferred it in a sort of a different order, right?
Right,
Like,
but I don't think I think that order is a betrayal to West.
yeah, on the flip side, one could argue
You know, it's a
that
betrayal to Sierra, of course. One could
and
say that,
her
but
agency and like
of course,
it
but it's not Wes saying like, "See, you get to stick your tongue in Sierra's mouth." It's just him saying like, "I am not going to have issue with this." I both like I both agree with
I
your
think it's
point.
complicated.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I don't know. But in the stereotypical like dude women world of like straight dynamics, I feel like that is the normal course of action in male
But maybe
relationships.
but maybe maybe it shouldn't be, right? I mean, there could be a situation in which, let's say, Jesse and Sierra, it's mutual, right? Like, we still don't really know, and and this is sort of a question mark, like, we don't actually really
Yeah, yeah,
know
yeah, yeah.
Sierra, but, like, let's say that it's mutual, and let's say that Jesse took a different approach and was like, "Hey, I'm feeling like there might be more than friend vibes here. Like, I wanna take you on a date, like, I I know that you're looking for something serious, like, I could be open to I could be open to something, like, I think I like you as more than a friend, like, what do you think about this?" And
Yeah.
they had a conversation, and it was mutual, let's just say, and then they together maybe go to West, and they're like, "Hey, we know this is awkward, like,
Yeah.
how would you feel about this?
I can
We
see
talked
it.
about it,
Mhm.
we're sort of thoughtful about it." I think that approach could honor all these complicated things
That's
that
fair.
I totally understand you're saying, because I do I mean, it's yeah, it's, no one wants to feel betrayed, and, like, if that's a real thing, that it's worth the level of, like, "Hey, this might piss off my good friend. Let's see if it's worth doing that first," you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's a great point. I almost think if Jesse was attempting to make it all parties are on board kind of thing in
Yeah,
some preemptive methodology that to your point takes away Sierra's agency
yeah,
and isn't really fair to her
yeah,
and has its own logic of course, but that point stands.
yeah,
Um and that at the end of the day if you do feel that strongly about this person, which we can discuss that part of it in a second, but if you do, I feel like well it's worth it potentially blowing up the friendship if that's how
right,
serious that could be, right? So to your
right,
point,
right.
yeah, maybe that is the right, sort of stepwise approach. I'm curious, I was so Jesse's a complicated figure. I don't know exactly what he feels, thinks. He's got that boyish energy that's both charming
For sure.
and is also are you an adult serious about anything, so
Yeah,
that kind of
yeah,
mixture.
yep,
But when he's having that conversation with Sierra and she articulates some of these hurts pretty well and pretty clearly, particularly about the just a make out.
mhm,
I was honestly expecting and waiting, like if I were watching uh I don't know, some sort of sporting event and that were this scene, be like, "Oh, he said the right thing." It should be like, scored a goal
yeah,
because he shared what he really felt is what I mean.
mhm,
And
yeah,
specifically in that moment
yeah,
saying, "Yeah, I said that, but like that's not the reality.
yeah,
I actually feel more than this."
yeah,
And he either doesn't feel
yeah,
that
yeah.
or just like West in his own way, he's too cowardly or unable to be vulnerable in that way and share his real feelings. That was my read. I'm curious what your read was.
Yeah. I think he definitely heard her. I think he definitely heard what she
Yep.
had to say about why she was hurt by this, and I think it was a bit of a reality check for him, and I think he maybe realized, like, "Oh, she is really serious. This isn't actually what I was, I don't know how I feel." Like, I think she was like he was like, "Maybe I need to really think about how I approach this situation," because I think he hadn't thought about it. I mean, I really
Which
think he wanted to make out with her. You know? Like,
so wild. Yeah, you're probably right. And to your point, it's probably why it went down the way it did.
Right.
And yet, I
I mean, he kind of was like, "Whoops, my bad. Like, never mind." Like, he walked it back, like, pretty
that's what I
quickly.
mean.
Yeah,
That's what I mean. I didn't
yeah.
expect that. I think they have an energy, and I think if I'm as your face, I
I
think
think they
as
have
a
an energy. I'll come back to that. Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know if I should say what I was going to say. What I was going to say was I could see a relationship dynamic between them
Yeah.
if they both decided to pursue that. Though the face you're giving might be a face you give sometimes when you don't agree, but you're shaking your head up and down as if you do. So feel free to share.
I think, well, this is a good revisit back to West, because I do think that there is a connection with them. I do think that. Um, but
Yeah.
I think that ultimately, I think she was really clear in, like, what she was looking for, and she really explained it to him, and he really realized, like, "Oh, this isn't actually, I don't
Jesse.
actually want this." Yeah, Jesse. Like, I think he in that moment was like, "Okay, I don't you're what you're basically what you're saying is, if you wanna try this, like, we're like, you have to come like, ready to try this," you
Right,
know?
right. Yeah, he was more dipping his toe in the water,
And he was like,
as it
"No, never
were.
mind, I don't wanna try it, I just wanna make out with you because 'cause you're hot and cool." And, I
Which
it's
okay,
understandable.
to that point, totally supports, makes sense with some of Sierra's later solo interviews where, she's really hurt and talking about
Yeah,
this feeling she's now experienced of, people just wanting to have sex with her or hook up with her
yep,
and not really being interested in the serious thing. And,
yep.
uh, to that point, this is another guy friend who has become a close friend who that's occurring with, and that's got to be pretty painful and feel like a betrayal.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I think it gets at I think it highlights I think it gets at for her, right, what she actually really wants, which is a real
sure.
partnership,
Yeah,
and this is kind of, right, another instance where she feels like she's not really seen and understood with that, and, someone just, like, wants physical, which I don't think is true. I think Jesse does like her. I think
that's
it's
what I'm
not like a
saying.
Yeah, I think he does. I think he does like her, but I think maybe he's not as relationship focused as she is. So I don't think he would be, quote unquote, using her. I don't think that that would be the case, but I think that
Yeah, yeah,
ultimately it would not, it's not really what they're not looking for the same thing,
for sure.
you know,
Okay, fair enough.
which I
Fair
just,
enough.
which
Which
I
I
think is
just
which I also think is relevant to her and West, right? Because
oh,
we also
totally.
see at the end of this last episode where West is really talking more about how he thinks about her, how he has a crush on her, like how he's still attracted to her, how he misses her at the very end. It's like
Yeah.
KJ, I think, is asking him, like, do you miss her? You know,
Yeah, to that
and
point, sorry, intro.
no, go ahead. I've been talking.
Well, no, I'm just gonna say to that point, I think that is really exemplified in the interview that same episode with Dara, where she is talking a bit about having dated West.
Yes.
And maybe you'll remember the quote better
I
than
remember the
I, but
exact quote.
please,
Yeah.
please go ahead.
She says West is a great person. I think, okay, I don't remember the exact quote. Basically, basically, Wes is a great person unless you're falling in love with him.
Right, right. And
And I
that,
think that that really hits the nail on the head. I think that that's probably true for Jesse too, where, like, it's these, like, really, like, fun, charismatic, like, funny, smart, interesting, good friend, people, guys,
yeah,
right, who are, who are maybe not looking for something that, it seems like, I guess West described it. He did describe it as a fling, right? They dated a few years ago for like 6 months, and basically, and he kind of was like, yeah, we had like a thing, like whatever. And she says, sounds like a similar thing happened with her and Sierra, where she was like wanting it to be sort of a more serious thing. So that's what she says. Basically, like, the term that comes to mind is like this, like heartbreaker, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
where like there's really a lot of chemistry, right? But at the end of the day, chemistry isn't what makes a really satisfying, fulfilling relationship. And I talk about this all the time with my clients, and I'm sure you do too, in your coaching. Like, it's just like, what are you looking for? If you're looking for the same thing, great. If you're not looking for the same thing out of the relationship,
Yeah.
the connection, the chemistry, the sex, the fun, none of that really matters ultimately if you're not looking for the same things.
Yeah, it
And
has to be a
so,
shared vision there.
yeah. And so that quote really, I
Yeah,
totally,
I
yeah,
I wouldn't have
it really
how do
tracked.
yeah, that's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
It puts what's unfolding with Jesse now and with West historically
Yep.
really just cuts to it, gets at the main point that I
Yeah.
think I don't know if I expected that from Jesse. I think if I were being really honest with myself, with his playful, charismatic, fun-loving, the boyish energy and the perfect smile,
Yeah.
it's uh, it's probably easy to fall for that in a interpersonal sense.
Totally.
And yet, push comes to shove, as just an example, he had his moment to really, I don't want to use just he had a moment to be the adult he could be
Yeah.
and be vulnerable and
Yep.
transparent with how he's really feeling.
Yep.
It's okay to not always know, but
Yeah.
to
Totally.
also share that it's unfolding and
Yeah.
these things are happening.
Yeah.
And I guess two ways are either he was honest and transparent and it's all just a simple makeout and I misread it personally as a viewer, or he wasn't ready to share that part of him and whether it's maturity or otherwise just isn't there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, hopefully he learned something from it, I mean,
I
I
mean,
always,
we'll see. We got some episodes to go. What,
for sure.
tonight?
Yeah.
Tonight?
Tonight. Yes. Tonight.
Oh, great.
Yes.
Good, good.
Exciting.
Okay. It is exciting. Hopefully I'll get to see Lindsay
Yeah.
again.
We need her back.
Well,
We've
her
been
advertisement at
on.
minimum, but yes.
Yeah. 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 Hopefully she comes back. Well, but even, and we'll see what, it's right. They're sort of planting the seed of like, are Sierra and West going to revisit, you know,
Right.
and I really think, and again, this is something I talk to my clients about all the time, this idea of like this connection and missing someone, right? Like, does that mean that you should try to revisit something, right? Missing someone is a totally normal and understandable
Yeah.
feeling, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that anything has changed in terms of what either of them want, from each other or from a relationship,
Surely.
right? So unless there was some situation where things had changed from his end, I don't see this playing out so great.
Yeah, it is interesting because I'm trying to remember if these were sort of recaps that will come up tonight where it's, you know, I think that's what it was. It was prepping us as viewers for this next episode, but where West is interviewed and he's talking about this great energy that's happening, but there's like, he wouldn't call it, I remember the producer and him are, in this conversation. And because it's all happening at night, he's distinguishing what it means. And
Right.
ironically, in a very different way, Sierra articulates that it seems like to him in part, but about how, daytime West vibe, the two of them, it's very different. And you bring in alcohol or otherwise, they didn't say this verbatim, but things that doesn't capture the essence of things for Sierra, it would seem.
Right.
And maybe West either. He's trying to figure out, well, there's this nighttime vibe. Things are
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
But do I think that captures the dynamic? I'm not sure. It seems like neither of them. And I don't know, that's interesting. It's confusing. I'm
Yeah.
guessing alcohol is the primary component there, but I don't know.
Well, also like the context of them like living in the house, right? Versus like,
Hmm.
you know, I would love to see more of how things had played out a few, when they dated a few seasons ago. Like we saw a little bit of
Yeah,
it during the week, but like in the house, you are in the same space by default, right? So like one does not have to plan,
right.
schedule a date, pursue, because you're right there. And so it's sort of easy to be like, this is how it would be. But then on sort of in the
Yeah,
real world, like it's not like that. And so, it can be tricky.
that's true. That's true. I agree with that. Um,
So
I'm
we'll see.
yeah, I'm thinking about this well, it's relationships adjacent where it's this whole Ben and Bailey thing.
Yeah.
And I guess in a way it really ties back to Kyle and Amanda, but it's
Yes.
its own sort of dynamic of discord,
Yeah.
relationships, friendships, all
Yeah.
the things.
Yeah.
To the viewer, breaking of the fourth wall. Alana and I have had a couple texts about this situation. It
Yep.
sounds like we may disagree, but we will see. We'll
Yeah.
see how
Yeah.
this unfolds. We've chosen to hold that dialogue. So
Yeah.
I'm curious what your perspective is, particularly on, it's Amanda's birthday. They're having their dinner. A couple people, it seems, at least that we view, are doing a cheers, saying what they appreciate about Amanda. Ben's doing his thing.
Yep.
Bailey interrupts with her pretty what would I call them? Uh her lines, and
Her
things
lines.
unfold. Feel free to add.
Well, so the context of this is, there does seem to be a flirtation with Ben and Amanda. So Ben,
And I was going to say, certainly in the way producers have shown us leading up to this point.
right. Yes. So this, of course, is an area that,
It's not to say it's
could.
not real. It's all real, like, statements he's made to her. They sound flirtatious at some level.
And they do this. Well, okay, so backing up a little bit, right? Ben is new this season. Bailey seems to have a thing for him, right? They sort of joke about how everybody has a thing for, because he's like this cute
They're both new
Australian.
this season.
Yeah, they're both right. Sorry, they're both new this season. Yeah, and Ben was like the Bachelor Australia, and so there's like so yeah, there are lots of people that are sort of crushing or
Hottie.
whatever, right? And they had that like singles event in the city where that that was a few episodes ago now, but that was an entertaining. I loved that.
Yes, yes, yes. To be
Um,
honest, I forgot it was a singles event. That's
yeah,
amazing.
it was great. It was one of those. Oh my gosh! Wait, I've been waiting to say this on the podcast. It was the theme of the party was bring someone that you're no longer interested in, and of course, anybody who's listening to this and who knows me knows that I'm about to make the Sex and the City reference to this party that was on the show where everybody was supposed to bring a date that they are no longer interested in, and that is how Samantha brought this guy who was very short, and he was pissed when he found out what the theme of the party was, and he was like, "You brought me here to dump me," and it was just this like very hilarious storyline that you should go watch. But anyway, so that was the theme of this mixer was like bring someone that
Okay,
you're not interested in dating. So like
forgot that.
so they brought like exes or they brought friends or whatever, and I think that's like such a good theme for a singles party. I
Wow.
love it.
Yeah, we got to
I
throw
love
that
that.
party.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It really, it
Could
really
be a
is.
great way to get clients, Alana.
Oh, God. So, so what were we talking about?
Okay,
Ben,
so
right?
yeah, so the dinner.
So
He's
right, so
saying
that's
how
where
much
we
he
also
loves her
meet.
smile and eyes.
Okay, yes. So basically, so the dinner, that's also where we meet at that singles mixer, I think is where we meet Dara, right? Who
Yes,
who
yes,
comes
yes, yes.
back, right? Um so at the fancy birthday dinner, they all go around and they say nice things about Amanda. And it's really sweet to hear, and some of and like her friends say really nice things about like how great she is and how smart she is and how driven she is, and it's like it's very sweet. And
Yep.
then we get to Ben, who talks about her eyes and her smile. And then Bailey makes this comment about how he wants to sleep with her. Right. And Bailey, and we've also seen leading up to this that Bailey,
interrupts his moment, like
uh-huh.
I interrupted
Yes.
your moment
Yep.
here,
Yep. Yep.
and and ends up
Yep.
spitting out this thing for a couple that is on the verge of divorce in the most toxic situation they could imagine,
Yep.
and says those things. Yes, go on.
Yeah. The other context that is important and relevant here is that Bailey has a big crush on Ben, and she talks about how she's awkward at
Oh,
flirt.
right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, so
Okay,
she has a
fair.
crush, and her whole thing of the last few episodes have been like, "How do you flirt? I don't know how to flirt. Like, I'm really awkward at flirting." So, like,
Ooh, that's interesting. I totally forgot her crush thing.
yeah. So
Mm.
this was, I think this was actually like her attempt
Mm.
at flirting, which highlights. Okay, so this is so what I really think about this is obviously Kyle and Amanda are on the brink, right? We know this.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
also they have teased, yes, like they had that argument the first episode or second episode about how Amanda and Ben were sort of flirting and Kyle got pissed and stormed inside, right? Like he
Yes,
gave her
yes,
a
yes.
towel out of the pool and they met skinny dipping, right? Remember that context too. They met all skinny dipping at a wedding in Italy or somewhere. Right. So
I can imagine it.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so there's that context of it, and so there is a bit, at least the way they are portraying this, there's some flirtation with Amanda and Ben.
Yeah.
Obviously, Kyle and Amanda are in a terrible place. Bailey has this crush on Ben. So this all culminates in this moment where Bailey decides to make this joke at that moment that does not go over well, and basically Ben comes and confronts her about it
Privately, yes, later.
privately. Yes, later. And so what I think about this is that and then Ben,
His confrontation or which part?
well,
All of it.
what should we start? What should we?
Well, okay, he confronts.
Yeah.
They have if one is to view it at its best, a conversation where he articulates annoyance, frustration, about what she chose to say. She generally apologizes, and then there's sort of the after effects where it seems like she's pretty affected by it. Feels like he yelled at her. Feels like, I'm done with him, whatever. And he feels like the way he articulates it to others, like I said my piece, she apologized, we've moved on.
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily the true nature of how everyone experiences it.
Well, it's of course, and I mean, again, like I talk about all the time. This is such a good example of different perspectives on the situation, right? Where she is saying he yelled at me, and then she goes and cries in the bathroom, and then she doesn't go out that night, right? And
Yeah, can I add one piece?
yeah, please.
In that interview, like the one-on-one she gave, she starts talking about her ex, who it sounds like was pretty
Yep.
abusive or aggressive.
Yep.
And in my head, I was like, are you going to compare whatever I just watched to whatever? And she does walk it back a little. And she's like, what Ben communicated to me was nothing like that. Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
And then she's telling people that he yelled at her.
Well, yes, she is saying that he yelled at her. And she says in that interview, I am, I'm not going to be in a position where a man who is not my boyfriend is yelling at me.
Sure. But she put herself in that position by saying something arguably inappropriate.
She named what was happening because
I thought she was trying to flirt.
but she definitely named what was going on because Ben wants to sleep with Amanda. Like,
okay.
I mean, Ben wants to sleep with Amanda, and Amanda's marriage is falling apart. And Amanda is also realizing, hey, there can be men who are attracted to me and treat me well. And then they go back. Part of their montage is like, he brings her the towel, he brings her coffee every morning. And Bailey even says, like, why is her husband not doing that? And that's an excellent point, and so like, this is all happening. and she's just saying it maybe in a way that is like a little blunt and like not the most socially aware, and like maybe she's had a few and whatever.
Oh, she
But
seemed intoxicated.
yeah, and then all of a sudden she's getting the heat for like naming the situation that is clearly happening. And I think part of Ben's reaction was defensiveness around the fact that he wants to fuck this married chick in the house.
Okay, okay. Hold on. Let me
That's
take
my
that
read
in.
on it. And,
Okay, okay, go on.
the yelling is subjective, of course. I personally think he spoke to her in an aggressive manner that was intense, and she had apologized and he kind of kept. Like, he did not really, you know, and she wasn't really curious. I mean, that a conversation could have been approached in a much different way, where he could have come a little more level. Hey, what was going on with that joke that made me uncomfortable? Oh, what made you
Yeah.
uncomfortable about it? And then this is actually a moment for him to think about, why did that make me so uncomfortable? Could it be perhaps because it is based in some sort of reality that makes me uncomfortable because I don't want to like be a part of this marriage falling apart? And obviously this marriage is terrible, but I probably can't say that because I'm new to this house and lots of things, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
And so I think Bailey ends up being scapegoated basically for like, again, maybe it was like not in but like
For
that's
poor
what's going
flirting.
on. Yeah, And I think she also rightfully is like, never mind that, crush. Like, I don't ever want to be talked to that way. And I think that yelling or not, the way he approached the issue with her was not the way.
Yeah. I'm trying to think
That's
through.
just my read.
No, no, you're allowed to have your read. No, it's helpful to hear. Okay, interesting. So, I guess in a way it's a yeah, I think I don't disagree with the scapegoating. If anything, it's an unfair, you know, expectation, social uh hmm, dynamic where, you know, how am I as a viewer going to judge Bailey in this situation with the egregious things these other cast members have said across the summers to each other, even this season already? And I'm gonna suggest like, oh, she shouldn't have said that. Like, how could you? When I think about what Sierra has said at dinners, Kyle, Amanda, just
Lindsay.
Lindsay, just like cutting, deep, painful, inappropriate, what have you. And it's almost like they are getting a pass in my mind, it would seem, for being historical cast members. And I'm seeing well, you've added some interesting context that I hadn't considered in addition, but also almost like I'm seeing both of them are having this sort of thing where she's being confronted maybe about not being a historical cast member in an underlying sense. And Ben's new to the house.
Yeah.
And so he's got his own thing. Also, he's brought in by the house by Kyle.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
underlying of all that. And his whole friendship is based on that marriage.
I think that is the heart of this, is that
Yeah.
Kyle and Amanda have this terrible marriage that is falling apart right in front of everyone. But it's the
Yeah.
elephant in the room, and no one can be like, what is going on with your terrible marriage? Although there are some side conversations about it. I mean, we even saw Bailey in the earlier episodes be like, is this normal? Right. And it's like,
Right,
it's
right, right.
normal for them, but it's not normal for a happy marriage, that's important to note. But but everybody is dancing around this toxic, unhealthy, like terrible marriage that's sort of like the center of the house. And look
Yeah.
how it's affecting everything around them. Like, it just actually is a really, I mean, it's an interesting example of just like what a terrible relationship can do to each other and to like and like what we were talking about before with Sierra, the friendship with Amanda, I mean, it's just
Right.
like, it's insidious. I mean, a marriage at that level really is insidious. And so it just like, this is like, we're seeing the fallout of this, where it's like, it's
Yeah.
not Bailey's fault. It's not Ben's fault. Like, it's just like, they're not naming the actual issue.
Yeah, they're almost victims of circumstance in the
Totally.
scenario.
Yeah. It's like, this is happening. Like, you guys, and there is, I wrote down in my notes as I was watching it, there is a level of like,
You wrote down or you voice memoed?
I Probably both. Um, yeah, my very exciting Friday nights over here watching and noting Summer House. I One of the things that I noted was so this plays out with like there's a way in which the this meaning the Ben and Amanda kind of flirtation that is there is a
Yeah.
way that this can play out in a healthy relationship, right? Because you know, this is just like what happened, right? Like, I mean, people have crushes, people are attracted to married people. Like, this shit happens all the time, right? In a
Yeah.
secure, healthy, connected relationship, this is not a big deal, right? This is like a situation where they could even joke about Kyle would be like, yeah, I think that dude Ben has a crush on you. That's because you're amazing and hot. And like, why wouldn't he have a crush on you? And they could actually be more connected around that. But of course, this is not that dynamic because they're falling apart. So it really is like a quote unquote threat. Meanwhile, it just says more about the marriage than it does about the other person.
Totally.
So yes, that's those are my thoughts on all that.
How many hours do we have to go
Yeah,
before we
I
get to
know. Well,
watch more?
we still have to cover KJ and Dara, and we still have to talk about Carl and Kyle, and you know, Loverboy and the whole financial piece.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. True.
And Lindsay's cameos. So we can let's start with KJ and Dara.
Oh, we're covering them now? My God, that sounds like 20 minutes,
Yeah,
Alana.
no, it can be quick. What do you think about them? What do you think about KJ and Dara?
Um, it's interesting. KJ seems like a really pure soul to me.
Yeah,
Really genuine,
sweet.
nice person. And I don't know much about her, but from what we've seen, and if I think about her insightful, cutting to the core of the issue comments, talking about her dynamic with West in a relationship, I'm excited for both of them. I think that could be really good. I could see a world where, you know how it goes, like he's starting to share these things about them hooking up, and does she want that shared? Is that information she's trying to have out there? And he's sort of saying it. He's like, "Yeah, we hooked up,"
And he's
and
like has his hood over
yeah,
his yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, is this going to be an issue now where he's sharing stuff they haven't agreed to be shared?
Mhm.
This is now on television. It's now part of the cast. West is clearly going to find out,
Yeah.
and West has ownership over all the people he used to hook up with, obviously. So
Yeah.
he should have talked to West,
For
clearly.
sure. Totally.
But that's how I'm feeling about where that's at. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts?
I thought there were some red flags on their date.
Oh, say
And
more.
you remember their date in the city?
Yes, generally.
Um, I wrote them down. Hold on.
Great. Please. Yeah, take your time.
Well, the first one I remember without having to look is that they show up for the date and he already has a drink and she calls it out. She's like, "Oh, you already have a drink?" And, you
Oh, wow.
know,
I missed some of these details. Okay.
yeah, I mean, this is, of course, like I talk a lot about dating. And so I really, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
this stuff is all very interesting to me. But yes, he is there first with a drink. And so, the considerate thing to do is to message and be like, "Hey, can I get you a drink?" or to wait until she gets there. Right. So, and she says it too. She's like, "Oh, you already have a drink." So that was the first red flag because it's a bit of a lack of
Mm.
consideration. That's what that's what that's about.
And yet could be like, loosening things up. I'm a little nervous. I just, got there earlier was she on time? I don't know.
Sure. Yeah. 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 There could be.
Interesting. Good
Um,
point. Okay.
and and then they talk about Ben, right? Because there was this sort of like, is she into
Yes, yes,
Ben?
yes, 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 yes.
And so
I
KJ
remember
just
that.
kind of asks her about it. But he takes it a little like, he kind of compares, he just sort of self-deprecates a little bit. He really kind of he's like, "Oh, well, why would you kind of choose me over him? Like, he's really attractive and he's really blah, blah, blah." And it's like in a way that is a bit of a red flag for insecurity because she's like, "No, obviously, like,
Oh,
I'm here with you,
he
you
strikes
know?
me as someone who struggles with that.
Yeah, and he talks about it. He talks pretty openly. We've seen him
To
talk to West about
West,
his
yeah.
anxiety. Yeah, and those have been some, and we get a little bit of like a history of his family and his dad, and so we have a bit of a we get to know him a little bit. But yeah, in
Mhm.
this context, it's like be confident. She's on a date with you, dude. So like be confident. It reminds me of like sometimes, I talk to clients about online dating, and sometimes people will ask, like, what made you match? Like, they'll sort of question if someone matches with them. And it's like, don't question it. Like, if someone matches with you or if they're on a date with you, they're obviously into you. So, like, you don't need to question, like, are you sure you want to be here? Basically, that's basically
Fair.
what he was
Yeah.
saying. Are you sure you want to
Yeah.
be here?
Yeah, totally.
And so that can speak to some confidence and esteem. And then he says he wasn't planning on being in a relationship over the summer. And she says, well, sort of, how do you feel now? And he kind of is like, oh, I don't know. Like, we'll see. And so, like, I mean, that can change and things can play out. But, we'll see how this plays out in terms of what they are both looking for. Right. And if
These sound
they,
like yellow flags. Red
that
flag
might,
seems like a strong color for what you've just articulated.
this is, this is, we'll see, I
No, but
mean,
I'm saying they're definitely things to be wary of. It sounds like. Are they, I don't know,
yeah.
abusive? Are they problematic to a core, like ordering an early drink? Is that a red flag?
Well, it's not abusive,
Well,
certainly.
obviously the drink isn't abusive, but I just seen it.
Like, let's like, yes, it is not, although, like, maybe in this day and age, people but no, that is not, you know, but these are again, it depends on what you're looking for. It depends on what she is looking for,
Yeah.
right? And these can be early signs of not taking a partner into account, not thinking about them, not planning, I mean, not, again, it depends on what you're looking for, right? And so, and like that can change. It's just something to keep an eye on. It is not, yes, it's not a red flag of like, he said fuck you on the first date and like threw a drink in my face and,
Whoa, whoa.
but
Is that
but
what
these
red
would
flags are reserved for?
no, that's my point. They're not reserved for that, right? And so again, it just depends.
You use yellow flags in this, like what's you have yellow flags too, or that's not part of the
You mean here in the situation or like in general?
just in how you do this, you know? Are there any yellow flags? If this is
Yeah.
red, if the
Of
ordering
course.
a drink early is red,
Of course there are yellow flags. Yes,
okay, all right,
definitely.
we'll
Of
get
course,
into
of
that
course, of
next
course.
episode.
Yeah, I mean, that's yeah, 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 yeah. But I do, I mean, again, this is yeah, these are just things to watch out for. But,
Mhm.
it doesn't mean a bad person, of course. And I think he is a sweet, genuine person, and I think he's into her for sure. So, we'll see.
Mhm.
We'll see
We
how it plays
will.
out.
We will.
And Kyle and Carl and their friendship. Should we talk about that?
Yeah, you mean the investment piece?
Mhm.
Yeah, what's your take?
Well, I think that so basically Carl is also a original? Yeah, I think he's an original cast member.
Certainly more so than many
Or
others.
if yeah, if not from the beginning, then very early on,
Feels
right?
OG.
Yeah. And we see him, I mean, he had a whole of course he was engaged to Lindsay. That's a whole other topic that we don't have time to cover today, but maybe we'll come back to it another time.
Yeah.
And he's gone through, he talks about he lost his brother to addiction. He has gone through his own sobriety. He runs marathons and he is opening this sober bar called Soft Bar. And, we sort of see him really figuring himself out, right? And I think that this was a big piece also of his relationship with Lindsay sort of falling apart. He didn't a similar compatibility thing in terms of visions of the future, right? And so now he's figuring it out, and I think he's really committed to doing that, and it's nice. It's nice to see.
Yep.
And then he talks about we see the bar like getting ready to sort of open, and
Yeah.
we see is it KJ that comes to visit? No, it's Ben,
Mm.
right?
Yes, it's Ben. It is
Ben.
Ben. Yes,
Yeah, so
yes,
Ben
yes.
visits and he's like, "Oh, this is like so great," and they sort of talk financials and Kyle says something about how or sorry, Carl says something about how Kyle didn't invest in Soft Bar and he talks about how he invested in Loverboy, which is Kyle's company that also Amanda had a part in, and that's a whole other I'm sure complicated thing with their divorce, but basically he says like, I wish that Kyle would have like would have invested in this.
Yeah.
And then it comes up again at the dinner, the fancy dinner,
Mm-hmm.
where they kind of give him shit, and Amanda kind of gives Kyle shit for like not investing in it.
Yep. Yep. And what's your take?
Well, I think, Kyle talks about how he's struggling financially, right? He says he
He
put a lot of
takes
it.
$500,000 loan out to pay the payroll.
I know, and he
How is
doesn't pay
this guy gonna have
himself.
any expectation
Yeah.
of giving a loan to a friend with
Yeah.
money? I mean, I just think
Yeah.
in a high level, take all the context out, totally see where Carl's at with it.
Yeah.
In a details of the matter, like the situation's entirely different this
It's
time.
so different. Yeah.
And I found myself feeling for Kyle that
Me too.
like the context didn't really. He's a small business owner, running basically an entrepreneurial startup
Yep.
that has complicated chances of success, and he's had to keep it running and keep it afloat by taking out a loan. I felt like he was for all the things Kyle is very validly, eviscerated for. I didn't feel like that felt like one that should have been fair
Totally.
or occurred.
Totally.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
justified.
agree. There is a lot of valid eviscerating of Kyle this season for sure. But I agree. I agree. I think that things obviously have changed in his life. And I think that, like, I mean, they don't know this at the time, but he is about to go through a divorce. And maybe on some level he does know that.
Mm, mm.
And I think there's really kind of a lack of compassion. Maybe part of it is also he's not talking about it in a way that would elicit compassion. Like he just gets really defensive about it as opposed to being
True,
like,
true, true.
hey, I'm actually really struggling here. I mean, but he and Kyle and Carl did have a conversation about it. So that is where he did say, like, I took out $500,000, like, and Carl was like, oh
Right.
shit. And so I was also a little surprised by Carl's seemingly, again, who knows, like production and editing and stuff, but it seems like he was not all that compassionate to it. And it really put a sort of focus on like a tit for tat situation. Like, I invested in you, so I hope you'd invest in me. It's like things happen, and I'm sure he wants to, and I'm sure he
Oh,
supports
totally.
you, but his financial situation has changed, and like that's sort of what it is. And even Amanda is like, you didn't invest like at the dinner,
Dude.
well, that's just another highlighting of like, I really just don't give a shit about you, and I want people to like, and I want people to know that you, yeah, I'm just calling you out in public, basically.
Oh, it happened again. I'm
Yeah,
sure it will continue.
I'm sure it will continue.
We
Yes,
shall see.
yes,
Yeah, I didn't think the
yeah,
underlying backstory of that was very valid on Carl's part, particularly as you reminded me and pointed out that he has the context
yeah.
about
He
this
has the
500.
context,
I could never imagine saying to a friend that expectation
and
publicly to
Kyle
other people.
totally, and Kyle even says like, I could give you $15,000, like, if you really want it, okay, buddy, right? Like, I mean, he kind of, but he's like, but I'm not in a position to be able to do that. And it's just, it's the idea of like what goes around comes around. Like he'll come, hopefully, like he'll get, like things will come around. Like life is long, you don't know, and friends support each
Of
other, and
course.
I mean, yeah, so we'll see. I think there was a teaser about like they get into a fight. I mean,
Great.
I think, yeah, so I think maybe we'll see. I think maybe we'll see that. Oh
What, 4 hours?
my God, I know. Anything else? Anything else we missed?
No.
You're like, no, this is too long. I know. For context, we're gonna try to keep it at an hour at the most, but here we are, and
Hans, I've been held hostage here for the last 20 minutes.
um, okay, that's all. Yeah, that's all. I'm
You
excited
want
to
to
see
do
more
a
of
rap?
Lindsay.
You want to do a rap thing
Like just finishing it up. Yeah,
to
yeah,
the
I'm going to.
episode?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes. Um, I am excited for the rest of the season, though. I'm excited to hopefully debrief again with you on another episode. Maybe we will cap the time, but this has been great. I love talking about it. I really do think that watching these kinds of shows really valuable for relationships
incredibly.
and to talk about dynamics and to learn what to do and what not to do. And I just I love it. And I think it's really informative. And so I really appreciate these conversations. And
Thank you for having me.
yes, thank you so
I
much
hope
for coming on.
I can come back on, still
Can't wait.
invited by the audience and otherwise.
For sure, yes. Okay. This has been Talk Relationship to Me, produced by Peach Island Productions. I'm Dr. Elana Hoffman. Do you have a question about relationships? I'd love to hear from you. Go to my website, drelanahoffman.com, and click contact, or you can find me on Instagram at dr.elanahoffman. You can find all the info you need, including more about today's episode, in the show description. And if you have questions or comments about today's episode, I would love to hear from you. You could inspire a podcast topic. And until next time, I encourage everyone to watch more reality TV and think about relationships, and in particular, Summer House. So thank you all for listening. And until next time.